Scientific detectives were still at the club this morning trying to reconstruct last night's drama. The bandits made their move soon after midnight when a lone barman was preparing to leave the club car park after closing.
The two fellows with a shotgun came from around the corner and just said to him, "Open the clubhouse or we'll shoot."
The bandits punched the man about the head and forced him at gunpoint back into the club. Inside, one of the men fired the gun, spraying shot across the floor and leaving tiny fragments in the wall. The robbers demanded that a strong room be opened, followed by an internal safe. Without the combination, the barman was unable to open this main safe. Frustrated, the robbers bashed him again and grabbed all the loose cash that they could. The thieves then forced the barman outside and escaped in a stolen car. Club officials estimate they've lost several thousands of dollars in the robbery.
BHP Australs did most of the attacking in the first half, with Gresham crashing one over the top, and then Bobby Namoff combined with Ralph Mayer, but his shot sailed high. When Sutherland did make the break, some crude defence by Australs resulted in a penalty for the visitors, and it was Robbie O'Shea who calmly knocked it past Craig Carter. Mayer went close to equalising in the first half, but the tremendous volley hit the crossbar and Brett Porter couldn't get enough boot on it to score. 2 minutes later, Namoff had keeper Dart stretching to his right to make a great save. On the resumption, it was all Australs as they attacked relentlessly, and again Dart made a super save. And one player for Sutherland will have a headache for a while as he latched onto a drive by Mayer. The inevitable happened midway through the second half, with the goal coming from a brilliant flick on by Simon Brandt, and substitute Paul Krzyzewski finished superbly, and it was 1-1.
The 3801 was all steamed up at Newcastle station, preparing for her annual battle, a 30-kilometre race against another old-timer, a Tiger Moth biplane. The two 50-year-olds have raced the last 2 years with a win apiece, but as the historic train puffed into Maitland station, after a 30-minute trip, it was a convincing win to the Airways. The trophy for the race was accepted by Newcastle Aero Club. Ironically, the pilot of the Tiger Moth is a train driver for City Rail. Steamfest is on all weekend at Maitland with displays such as this 70-year-old 12-tonne road roller and this old beauty shipped out from England in 1912. The Class 10 locomotive was one of Australia's last commercial steam engines, carting coal from Hexham to Stockrington, giving the game away just 3 years ago.
The Giants opened brilliantly with new boy Joe Hillman slipping through some shoddy defence to score. Scott Fisher was always going to be a danger, and he helped the Giants to a 13-point lead very quickly. But the younger brigade of the Falcons hit back, with old head Michael Johnson sinking a couple of amazing baskets, and the crowd was abuzz as the Falcons led by a point at quarter time. But the Giants went into overdrive on the resumption and were never headed. They led by 10 points at half-time, and with Mark Leader playing well, stretched that lead to 23 at the last change. Fisher continued to dominate at both ends of the court, and David Graham, despite all the off-court attention, found his range and sank deadly three-pointers with regularity. Lazard tried to lift the Falcons, but it was all to no avail, and the Giants were home by 21 points.
Newcastle Council had planned to host its Clean-Up Day in line with the National Clean-Up Australia Day in January, but the earthquake forced it to be postponed. Today, though, all went according to plan. Volunteers turned out in force, wading through mud and rubbish, filling their sacks to the brim. The Throsby Creek Reserve was a major problem. Most of the rubbish dumped in stormwater drains all around the city finds its way here. Murky Troyd, a one-time resident of the reserve, came to lend her support. Ian Keenan, mastermind of the Clean Up Australia campaign, commended the efforts of the volunteers involved in Newcastle.
The spirit that's apparent here, the effort that's being put in here, both by the council workers and the general population, is excellent. There's a wonderful spirit alive and very well in Newcastle.
Do you think it actually makes a difference to the overall look of the city?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're not going to lie down and die and say Throsby Creek's a mess. There's nothing we can do about it. They're in there doing a dirty and thankless job and really getting somewhere.
In all, the clean-up netted more than 200 tonnes of rubbish and 16 discarded car bodies from the 5 nature reserves targeted.
We've probably got 500 to 1,000 people on the ground right now, according to the reports I've had, and they're doing a magnificent job. And by today, the end of today, the city will be a lot cleaner than it was this morning.
Western Suburbs dominated the first half, with Neil Baker setting up plenty of attacking moves, and it was the 5'8" who threw a brilliant pass to Watkins. Atkins lobbed a long ball to Tony Price, and West were in for their first try. The Rosellas were on the rampage as again they busted the Kurri defence, with Baker and captain coach Mal Graham combining, with Atkins and Farnley Morrison involved in a big raid which came up just short of the Kurri line. Phil Williams kicked 2 crucial penalties for the Bulldogs, and they were back in the hunt. But West found a way through on the blind side, with lock Peter Webber breaking smartly from the scrum, getting the ball to his winger Peter Jenner, who scored in the corner. There was experience plus in West's third try as Neil Baker gave a delightful ball to Mal Graham, and he was in for the Rosellas. Ahead 16-4 at the break, it looked a foregone conclusion, but someone forgot to tell Kurri to lie down. And shortly after, Dale Williams made a brilliant chip kick which he regathered, got it outside to Baldwin, who broke one tackle, got the pass back inside to Phil Williams, who did the rest and crossed for a 4-pointer. 5 minutes later, Kurri were in again, with Dale Williams again chipping through, and he won the race and was able to reach out and ground the ball for a great try. Baker kicked a penalty to make it 18-14 in favour of Wests, and then Kurri was reduced to 12 men. Tony Price made a break and John Munro was dismissed from the field by referee Benson for this tackle on the West centre. Paul Bowen had a chance to seal it for the Rosellas after Tony McDonald put him on the path to the posts, but the referee ruled he was held up over the line. And then Paul Dyson levelled the scores when he cut through some ordinary defence to score wide out, and Phil Williams slotted the long-range goal to put Kurri in front for the first time. But in injury time they gave away a penalty, and Neil Baker, cool under pressure, booted the goal that resulted in a 20-all draw.
Incessant rains in the Hunter, the northwest and Queensland and Victoria have flooded out ground crop vegetables and sent prices spiralling.
But on the leafy vegetables and the vegetables that are grown close to the ground, there are some dramatic increases and up over 100%.
It's simple economics. With a short supply of crops, there is a greater demand and hence higher prices. Since the beginning of the year, beans have jumped from around 80 cents per kilo to $4 or $5. Broccoli has doubled. Cabbage and zucchini have almost become delicacies. According to Peter Holmes from the Newcastle Chamber of Fruit and Vegetables, the future isn't too bright either. Replanting has been delayed as growers are forced to wait till conditions dry out.
Things that are rotting in the ground now, they can't get tractors on to dig them up and replant. They'll have to let the ground dry out, so that will have an effect for quite some months.
135 up, have a look here. 135, second ball about to go. Yes! 35-4.
The cost of beef too is set to rise, while prices held firm at local sales this week as the market was flooded with cattle in a pre-winter sell-off. Auctioneers are predicting that will change.
Prices here are going to be on the increase. Just at the present time though, big numbers of cattle about and the prices will stay at a medium range.
With the northwest farmers rebuilding their properties over the next few months, unable to produce cattle, plus a traditional shortage of beef in the winter, householders will be paying more for their Sunday roast. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Residents of Young Street awoke this morning to find obscenities scrawled in bright red letters across the outer walls of St Thomas's Anglican Church Hall. The church has been vandalised before, but never so maliciously. Church vandalism is disturbing at the best of times, but what made this attack particularly unfortunate was that it happened just as the community of Carrington was saying farewell to one of its most respected senior citizens. The people of Carrington were attending the funeral service of 89-year-old lifelong resident Bob Downey. The Downey name is well known here, especially by the older generation, who also remember when vandalising a church was unthinkable.
Well, I consider it a rather poor reflection of the mental and spiritual attitudes of the people responsible, and I'm very sure that it's saddened the hearts of many on this community of Carrington.
Morris Tier and Charlie Smith remembered Bob Downey. They decided their old bowling mate deserved a better send-off. Using rags and a bottle of turpentine donated by a local hardware store, they set to work.
It didn't seem right, so when we walked past this morning, we decided to come down and do a little bit for the church.
It took them 2 hours. They worked throughout the funeral service, but when Robert Alexander Downey left St Thomas's on his last journey, the walls were spotless. Maury and Charlie say they don't often do charity work and they aren't exactly religious, but they say they had to do this job. Bob Downey would have liked it that way.
The computer system developed by Family and Community Services is proving invaluable in administering disaster relief for the Newcastle earthquake. It's also being put to good use in helping victims of the Nyngan floods. Field workers can use portable terminals to store information which is transmitted to a main-based computer. Welfare officers can then determine details of the victim and monitor the progress of their claims. In effect, the system streamlines what would otherwise be an administrative nightmare.
The system allows us to keep an accurate, up-to-date record of the people that have applied for assistance. We can very readily find the files, what assistance has been given and what assistance is needed. And we've also tied it into the Lord Mayor's appeal so that we can also note which files we have referred to the Lord Mayor's appeal as well.
This system is the first specifically designed for disaster welfare recovery. As such, it's attracting international interest, with inquiries from New Zealand, Israel and the International Red Cross in Geneva. You'd almost think James Bond was cruising Lake Macquarie. The Banana Yellow Ranger hovercraft is an awe-inspiring sight as it glides effortlessly over land and water. Its turbocharged diesel engine can reach speeds of up to 100 kilometres an hour. This is Delta Hover's demonstration craft, the second vessel manufactured since the company set up in Toronto 18 months ago. The firm is now making a play for the Asian market, with negotiations underway to set up a joint venture with an aviation company in Thailand. Today, a potential business partner was given red carpet treatment, taken from Toronto across the lake to the door of his Sydney-bound plane. A similar service for fare-paying passengers will soon be introduced.
So we intend to operate a service to Beaumont Airport, connect Toronto with the airport, and probably a weekend service from Toronto or Rathmines to Blacksmiths to get people to the surf beaches.
Most vessels would be content to circumnavigate islands. The Ranger hovercraft simply glides right across them. It's really the ultimate all-terrain vehicle. The company offered its services during the recent evacuation of flood-bound Nyngan. It wasn't used on that occasion, but Barry Wilson believes the hovercraft could have future applications in similar circumstances.
We're going to take out the seats, and we figured we could carry 25 sheep and about 70 bales of hay, or 70 bales of hay. But again, I guess the idea was a bit radical and it didn't come up.
Do you think it could find an application in future floods?
I think it will. They've taken all our details now, and I think we're sending them a video just to show them what it can do.
Members of the public can test ride the high-tech hovercraft this Saturday. Delta Hover will run joyrides from the Warners Bay Shopping Centre, with all proceeds donated to the Angel One appeal. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
The upgrading of the Cardiff and Broadmeadow stations has been fast-tracked for mid-year completion. Cardiff is being transformed with a new ticket office, lighting, seats and landscaping. The platform will be raised to make getting into and out of carriages easier. At Broadmeadow, all-weather canopies will be installed, as well as improvements to seating and lighting in the waiting area. The money is coming from the state government's 5-year, $105 million upgrading program. The reorganised City Rail in Newcastle celebrates its first birthday this Saturday. For $3, passengers can ride the system between Newcastle, Sydney and the Blue Mountains. Also, a tin hair rail motor will run between Broadmeadow and Redhead.
The Woodchip carrier Mulberry left Newcastle port this evening bound for Japan, short 2 crew members. The body of the ship's quartermaster, 26-year-old Kang Taegu, will be sent home pending arrangements with the Korean embassy. The ship's saloon boy, Im Chae-wan, was escorted off the Mulberry yesterday morning by homicide detectives. He appeared in Newcastle local court today, charged with murder. The court was told the incident erupted shortly before 9 p.m. as the vessel was off Crowdy Head. The wounded quartermaster allegedly staggered out of his cabin and collapsed in the passageway. The captain detoured to Newcastle after advising the Sea Safety Centre that he had an injured crewman. A RAF paramedic lowered onto the ship confirmed that Kang was dead. Today, Magistrate Jeff Brown refused bail to Im on the grounds of the seriousness of the offence and because the accused had no close ties in this country. Court proceedings were conducted with the help of an interpreter. However, the Korean embassy will be contacted to arrange for another interpreter for later proceedings. Im will reappear at Newcastle Court on Monday.
We have a rough idea at restructuring and stuff like that, you know, but normal.
This is the style that could take Jason Maxwell to a world title. The Maitland magician has already won state and national crowns, but was resigned to missing the World Championships scheduled for August in France because of a lack of sponsorship. Enter the MLC Junior Sports Foundation, which today presented Jason with 2,000 reasons to smile.
We weren't going to go, and then when Fred rang up and said he'll give us $2,000, that was unreal. I couldn't believe it.
He's no stranger to the world stage. A second placing at the last world titles in Brisbane came as a shock, but he's now confident of going one better.
Well, Australia's got a lot of good riders, and I thought America was a lot better than Australia, but they're not really. They've got good riders too, but we're pretty even, I think. I thought they'd be a lot harder overseas, but like they weren't. They were just, I was up with them, so that was pretty good.
Playing in the city's colours of cinnamon and green, BHP Newcastle opened well against an experienced Sydney outfit, and at quarter time it was all tied up at 6 apiece. In a match that was pretty physical, it was hard for the goal shooters to get on top, and at the long break Newcastle had just nudged ahead 16-13. The Oranges certainly worked for the local girls in the third quarter as they steamrolled their way to a 28-15 lead. Goal shooters Susie Lowndes and Sandra Landrigan found their range, and they were well supported by a sterling defensive effort from Joanne Bora, Leanne Donoghue and Julie Gray. In the final term, centre Jenny Donaldson and wing attack Cassie Mowbray gave extra depth to the effort, and BHP Newcastle ran out worthy winners 37-24.
Approval for the mining lease on over 1,700 hectares of land northwest of Singleton was granted by the government in record time. And at today's opening, Neil Pickard, Minerals and Energy Minister, stressed no environmental controls had been overlooked. The coal, around 1.35 million tonnes annually for 20 years, will be transported to Newcastle by rail, avoiding extra wear on local roads. 250 people will be employed in construction, while over 200 will be needed to work the mine.
To the development of the Hunter, it will mean roads, schools, it will mean hospitals and community facilities.
The mine also represents Toyota's first move into coal production, and the Japanese company owns 40% of the $140 million project. Representatives flew to Australia especially for today's groundbreaking ceremony, promising a boost to Australia's export trade and international relations. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News. It was 2 years ago that the old milk bar closed up shop. Since then, Oak has been amalgamated into the Hunter Valley Cooperative Dairy, and the milk bar's bought up by Newcastle company Starfaz. Hexham is the first of the roadside outlets to open as part of a planned multi-million-dollar statewide expansion of Oak Eateries. A similar one is planned next for Coffs Harbour, with more in the Hunter, Central Coast and Sydney. The new building is Australian homestead style, so is the food, with an emphasis now on wholesome eating. But luckily, some things in life never change, and this is one of them. Milkshake fans will be pleased to know that all the delicious ingredients have been retained. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.